Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We're going to be talking all about Kentucky Stable Accounts. I'm Stella Beard with KYSPIN, and we're so happy that you've decided to join us today for the webinar. I wanted to go over just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a dashboard. On that dashboard, there are a few things I would like to point out to you. One is the little arrow that says Handouts. If you click on that, you will see 5 handouts that you can download to have. There'll be the PowerPoint and 4 additional handouts. But I will let you know, if you don't want to take the time to download those right now, we will be sending all of those out in a follow-up email later this afternoon. So you'll be getting that in your inbox. So if you don't want to do that now, that's totally fine. Also, you will see an arrow that has a box that says questions. If you have a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to type that in the question box. I also have Kelly Smith and Michaela Evans with us from KYSPIN. They will be helping monitor our questions today also for Carolyn. So please feel free to type those in the question box. And before we get started with Carolyn's presentation today, I did want to take just a few minutes and tell you a little bit about KYSPIN. KYSPIN is the Kentucky Special Parent Involvement Network. We are the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Kentucky. We are funded through the U.S. Department of Education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And we have actually been the Parent Training and Information Center since 1988. So that's been a very, very long time, and I'm happy to say we recently were funded again for an additional 5 years. So we are going to be able to continue to provide training, information, and support for children and youth with all types of disabilities, birth through age 26. And we work with parents, family members, and professionals. So I think that's really important for everyone to know. Something that we do not do at KYSPIN is we do not act as attorneys. So when we're talking to families, we're not giving them legal advice. We are really here to empower them to begin to effectively advocate for their children and to provide peer support to help families access needed information and resources. And one of the things that I think is so special about KYSPIN is that all of our staff are either parents who have a child or a young adult with an intellectual developmental disability. They're either a sibling or they have a disability themselves. So that allows us to provide that peer support that families need and lend that listening ear. We show this slide almost at all of our webinars, and we have been doing webinars since the pandemic occurred back in March, which seems like so long ago now. But I love this slide. It says, together we can accomplish great things for our children, and none of us have all the answers, but we're all working through this pandemic and adjusting as we go. And we here at KYSPIN, we adjusted pretty quickly, and we began to have webinars on Tuesday and on Thursdays, and we have pretty much done that since March. So our video library is a wealth of information from all the webinars that we have been doing since then. I'm happy to say we have Carolyn Wheeler, who is with us. She is from the Human Development Institute and a project director there, and she'll talk about probably a little bit of all the projects she does. Carolyn has been a great mentor to myself, and she has helped me through many questions and things that I needed to have answered to me regarding my son Clayton. And so I'm very excited that Carolyn is with us. And we also have Karen Hernita with us. And Karen was very instrumental in bringing the stable account to Kentucky. So we're happy to have both of you all with us today. And can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I sure can. This is Carolyn.
Awesome. Karen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we are happy that you're here, and I'm going to give the controls over to Carolyn and make her the presenter so she can show her screen so we can get started with our presentation today.
Well, thank you, Stella. And actually, I'm going to toss the ball back to you here in just a minute, but I just appreciate the opportunity to be with you all this morning and appreciate your time, and also appreciate Stella and Karen as well for their talent for their leadership as parents, as advocates across many initiatives here in Kentucky. So Stella, actually, if you would share how you and your son Clayton have used Stable Kentucky for Clayton's benefit.
Absolutely. I'm going to show my camera because I do have a special guest with me, and Clayton is joining me today.
Hello.
And because I did want to share just a little bit a personal experience with Stable. And actually, Clayton and I were, this picture that you're seeing on the screen, we were here, we were at the event when Stable was introduced to Kentucky, and Clayton was able to share his story that day. And so that was very exciting for him. And one of the things that has helped us so much with having a Stable account for him is to put that money that has been extra for him into that savings account. And so we have been really putting it away because we eventually would love for Clayton to have his own home and to live in his own house. And we want to build that here on our farm. And so what we started out just opening it up, and really we had nothing in there. We just kind of left it, we started it, and we kind of just went on about our merry way. And then, to be honest, when the pandemic hit, Clayton has been employed at the same job since he was 17. He's now 24, and he was laid off due to COVID. And so we were able to file unemployment for him. And so having that good work record allowed him to receive unemployment benefits since his job was closed for months. And so when all that was coming in, we knew that we needed to put it somewhere safe. And so we did. We began to put that in the Stable account. And so that has been just wonderful for him to have that and to have that opportunity for him to be able to save without it affecting any of his benefits. So I am very excited that that was an option, because before that would not have been an option for him. So so thank you, Clayton, for showing your sweet face to everyone today, and so that we can see who we're actually talking about today. And it's about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities having the same options that others that do not have. And so this is a way that it has allowed our family to be able to save for his future. And so I'm excited that we were able to do that for him.
So thank you, Stella. I'm going to show my face too, just so you know I'm here. I'm Carolyn Wheeler, and I actually thought I actually have a Stable account too. And let me see if I didn't have my picture. See if it will open. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing a picture of my friend Linda, myself, and Jennifer, who is one of her wonderful community living supports people. We're actually at a fundraiser. That's my glass of wine. Linda doesn't drink. In any event, for the organization, the nonprofit that supports Linda. And so Linda also, I've opened a Stable account for Linda, and it's been very helpful to save money actually for hearing aids. Also, she actually paid for some of her own personal assistance when she was fortunate to be able to move from the Michelle P. waiver to the SCL waiver. But long story short, she'd been in a nursing home. We had to get staff onboarded. That doesn't happen overnight. So there was funds where actually she paid for her own personal assistance for a couple of weeks until we got that back in. Everybody got lined up for whatever they had to have for the requirements. So again, like Stella, and as Karen will share later on, it's just a wonderful opportunity to save for, again, qualified disability expenses. So Karen, I'm going to turn off my webcam and then let you turn yours on. And so you can also talk to folks about your role in what's happening here on this first slide.
Hi, I'm Karen Adina. I have 2 adult sons with Fragile X, and I have one Stable account. I have one Stable account for one son because he doesn't spend very much money, so we need to save that. My other son, he's pretty good at spending money. So, but anyway, how the Stable got going is that in the election year of 2014, Will Schroeder, he's there in the center with the green tie. He was running for office for Senate in Kentucky, and he showed up on my front porch, and I told him how I wish there was a way that you could save money for people with disabilities. And he said, well, if I get elected, I'll look into this. Well, in the meantime, at the national level, there was ABLE Act was trying to get passed. And it got passed and signed by President Obama on December 19th, 2014. So I was very excited that happened because I'm like, oh, great, we're going to have these accounts. But then I found out that each state had to pass its own legislation around the ABLE accounts. So Senator Will Schroeder was now Senator Schroeder, and I contacted him, and he worked with me and some national agencies in order to get the bill passed. It was passed in the legislative session of 2016, and then Treasurer Ball, she's in the picture there with the blue suit. She joined a partnership with the state of Ohio, because Ohio and Kentucky, there were two families from those states that got the whole ABLE Act going. And she joined in a partnership with Ohio, which has stable accounts. And now those stable accounts, I think there's 14 states around the country that were all a partnership together. And so she was able to start Stable Kentucky without using taxpayer dollars. And so it's been going on since 2016, and I want to say we have almost 700 accounts in the state of Kentucky.
So thank you, Karen. So actually all three of us, Stella, Karen, and I, are all what are called stable ambassadors. So stable, it's actually state treasurers, and then the ABLE. ABLE stands for achieving a better lifetime experience, or life experience, I'm sorry. So we all have been involved in outreach and promotion of stable accounts. And so just know that the presentation that I'm going to be using today is actually available to you as well on the Stable Kentucky website that I'll show you a bit later when we're finished. So again, the other folks in the slide, again, that's Senator Schroeder with the green tie, State Treasurer Allison Ball in the blue suit. And then I'm not sure who's standing behind her in all honesty, but all the other folks are members or staff at that time of the Commonwealth Council on Developmental Disabilities, which did play a major role in getting our ABLE program established in the Kentucky Treasurer's Office, which is actually, or in the Treasurer's Office, which is actually where a number of other states, that's actually where their programs are housed as well, which I think is awesome because this is really a financial planning opportunity tool. It's not a human service. And so I think that's a really good place for it to be located. And so again, Stable is Kentucky's ABLE plan, and you can see the website stablekentucky.com that I'll show you here in a bit. And so what is ABLE? As Karen said, the ABLE Act of 2014, it was federal legislation. And again, parents, just again to give credit again to parents who worked so hard for I think 10 years to actually make this happen, to create these savings and investment accounts for individuals with disabilities. And so money, again, it's only money that can be in a stable account or in any ABLE account. ABLE account, the money in that account is excluded for purposes of SSI, Supplemental Security Income eligibility, and Medicaid eligibility. And so that's just a tremendous resource vehicle for people to be able to save for the future without fear of losing much needed benefits. So it's kind of a hybrid of a 529 college savings plan. ABLE is in the same tax code as 529 college savings plans. It's a 529A plan, which means that the IRS is giving it really great treatment, that the money in the stable account can grow tax-free as long as it's used for qualified disability expenses. It can function, I don't know so much as a checking account, but like as a debit. Karen's going to explain to you how the stable card would work. And it has the same kinds of protections as a special needs trust. However, with, at least for the person, but typically it has, lower fees, and you don't have to have so much money in it to make it to be profitable for you. So again, Stable Kentucky is Kentucky's ABLE program. It is administered by Treasurer of Kentucky, Allison Ball, who was the treasurer then. She was reelected last fall and then was launched just 4 years ago this month. And as Karen said, it's offered to Kentucky residents through the Ohio Stable program. But what we, in addition to the fact that Ohio taxpayers paid to get all of this up and running, being a part essentially of the Ohio program means we are part of a national program. So if you open a stable account in Kentucky and you move to Florida, or your family moves to Florida or wherever, that you don't really, all you really need to do is let them know and probably give them a change of address. You know, you don't have to actually move that account to another ABLE program. So I also really like that feature of it. So again, the benefits, it dramatically increases the ability to save so that people can now save well over $2,000 and again, maintain eligibility for, again, typically SSI and Medicaid. So the ownership, one of the benefits of a stable account is that the ownership, it's actually owned by the person with the disability. So Clayton owns his account. My friend Linda owns her account. Karen's son owns his account, but those of us who serve in some kind of a legal role in that person's life are able to open them on behalf of the person when that's needed. Or a parent could open an account for a minor child, but the ownership actually belongs to that person with a disability. It is not a traditional savings account in that it really is an investment account. So while you'll see in a minute there is one account where your money can go that's quote bank safe, which is kind of like a money market account that you might get at a bank, the real benefit to stable accounts or ABLE accounts of from any state is that you can have the money invested and then it has the opportunity to grow, again, tax-free. And so that is just, it's like a Roth, if any of you are familiar with Roth IRAs, okay, so if you have a Roth IRA, the money can grow money grows tax-free because it's with after-tax dollars. So that's just a huge incentive to save as well. Now, in order to be eligible to open a stable account, the person with a disability, that disability has to have occurred prior to the age of 26. So again, read, if you can, what's on the slide. Kentucky residents with disabilities that occurred prior to age 26. Now, Clayton, obviously, he opened his account prior to age 26. But my friend Linda, she was 66 when I opened the account for her, but her disability occurred at birth. And so similarly, Karen, I'm going to assume for your son, his disability occurred probably at birth or before the age of 26, but he may have been over the age of 26 when he opened the account. Now, Congress, there's been legislation before Congress to actually increase that age to 46. Congress obviously has lots of things competing for their attention. That may at some point pass because it does, especially veterans have been advocating for that to occur, but at the present time, if your disability occurred after the age of 26, you are not eligible to open. And then you have to have plus one of the following. You're eligible to receive SSI, Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance due to disability, or you have a condition listed on Social Security's Administration list of compassionate allowances conditions, or you can self-certify. And when I show you the website, you'll see where you can click on a link and be able to do that. So what is self-certification? So one, the person needs a diagnosis of a physical or mental impairment that causes marked and severe functional limitations. That condition has lasted or is expected to last for at least 1 year. When you open the account, you do not need to send in written diagnosis, but you must have it on hand should the IRS or Social Security or Medicaid ever want documentation of the disability. So how do you enroll? And again, enroll is the critical verb here, or open an account. So to enroll, you do it, again, I will show you the website, but it's free. I would argue it will only take you 20 minutes if you've spent time on the website and then understand, for example, your investment options. When you open the account, you have to tell where you want your money to go, whether it's $50, $500, $5,000. So you need to have done your homework, so to speak, in order to be able to complete the application. So the enrollment can be done by either the individual with a disability who's referred to as the beneficiary, or an authorized legal representative, which can include the parent of a minor child or the guardian or power of attorney of an adult with a disability. So how do you fund your account? Well, you have two ways, and my bias is the first one, that when you set up the account, you link it to to a bank account, because then it's very easy to just electronically transfer funds in to the account and then also to have them transferred back out. Or you can mail in a check. Again, remembering that it is a minimum of $50, but as you're going to see here in a minute, there are some monthly charges. So hopefully one would have the intention of putting money into the stable account. You don't have to have $50 the next month. I mean, you could put in 10, you could put in 5, you could put in 20, or you could put in 100 or whatever. But just that the idea would be much like you would with I think of any kind of a savings account or retirement account. You want to continue to grow that account on a monthly basis if possible. Now let's look at how much money you could actually put into a stable account. So if the person's not employed, it's up to $15,000 per year from all sources. So I'll use Clayton's situation. So in Clayton's situation, Clayton has one account. Clayton can put in money. Stella and her husband could put in money. Clayton's grandparents could put in money, aunts or uncles, or people who just know and love Clayton and for what, want to just contribute to his future. So it's not just limited to Clayton, but he can only have one account. If the person is employed and they do not have the opportunity for an employer-sponsored retirement plan, they can contribute an additional $12,060 per year. So that's just really a significant amount of money, with the lifetime limit being the same as the 529 college plan, which in Kentucky is $462,000. Now that would include contributions and growth on the money. You do need to understand that unlike a 529 plan, where if you had the money, a parent or a grandparent could actually fund that initial 529 plan with, say, $100,000, you cannot do that with a stable account. However, you can roll a 529 plan into a stable account, which is, I think, also awesome. So again, if not employed, $15,000 per year from all sources, and then if employed, up to $27,060. I do want to point out back here, though, for those of you who may be familiar with, there's an impact on a person's, particularly their SSI payment, so a Supplemental Security Income payment if they go to work. Putting wages into a stable account doesn't shelter them from still being viewed as income by Social Security. So again, Clayton would be paid, and then Clayton, if he has additional money, because I believe Clayton had 2 jobs, if he has additional money from his job, he can put that into his stable account. I happen to know that actually Clayton gets a different kind of benefit than SSI, but all that to say is that it doesn't shelter those wages from being counted as earned income by Social Security. And again, the lifetime balance. So I think this is a really great feature. So you can create, there can be an e-gift event, sends out emails to friends and family for special events. So again, this is awesome in terms of, instead of perhaps, especially as children grow older into young adults, or even as young adults. So instead of a birthday gift, would you simply make a contribution directly into my stable account? And then the stable account will track those contributors for sending thank you notes. So I think that's really a great feature. Now, I talked earlier about the fact that stable accounts are investment accounts. And so you will choose from one or more Vanguard. So if you're not familiar with Vanguard, just open up a browser on your internet. People always say Google, which is my favorite, but there are others. But just put in Vanguard, and you'll find that Vanguard is a highly reputable financial services company. And so the funds in actually all of Ohio's accounts are managed through Vanguard, which also, by the way, charges very low what are called asset management fees. So it's really a very inexpensive way to invest money for it to grow. So you're not going to pick a specific mutual fund, which is good because that could be very overwhelming, but you're going to choose what's known in that world as an asset allocation strategy. So I'll show you on the website, but you can read that. So growth, for example, frankly, greatest opportunity for your money to grow, but also the greatest risk for perhaps you to lose some of the money that you put in. And then you have moderate growth, conservative growth, income, and then the bank safe is what I described earlier as like a money market account. And it is principal protected, means that whatever you put in, whatever's in your bank safe account isn't going to grow very much, but you also won't lose anything. So you can see by this example that you could allocate the money any number of ways, but that's the decision you need to make when you open your account. Now, my suggestion would be if you open an account with $50, I would just put that in the bank safe. But then as I hopefully put maybe $50 in the account every single month, once I got that up to maybe $500, then I would look at probably allocating it along one of these other areas, perhaps the red, the turquoise, or depending on the age of the person, you might just, you're not planning to take the money out. That would be the other factor, is how often do you anticipate taking out the money? So again, in the field of financial services, that's known as kind of your risk tolerance around which mutual fund asset allocation you would choose, and then your time horizon. So there could be families who have a child born with Down syndrome today. They open up a stable account, let's say in 3 months, and their idea is that we're not going to touch that money, hopefully, until that child maybe is 20, 22. And so we might they might decide to put it all into growth. So that's kind of how to think about this. Again, what you're comfortable with in terms of risk, and then what's your time horizon. So withdrawals must be used on qualified disability expenses. And so the two criteria are that expense relates to the disability and it helps maintain or improve the health, independence, or quality of life of the person. And so these are major categories that you can see. And there are additional examples that are given on the website. And then how do you spend your money? And so it doesn't cost any money to withdraw money from your stable account. Again, there are 3 different ways for it to occur. The way that I do it is that when Linda has needed money from her stable account, I go into my online account and ask for it to be transferred back to her personal checking account. So for example, last fall, she bought hearing aids. And so I requested $998 from her stable account. That money was transferred into her checking account, and then I wrote a check to Hearing Life or True Hearing, one or the other in Louisville, Kentucky, to pay for the hearing aids. And I have the responsibility for saving the receipt should the IRS or Social Security or Medicaid come knocking to see what did I spend that money on. You could also I could also have requested that they just send a check to that company, or as Karen will talk about in a minute, you can transfer money directly onto the stable card. So now I'm going to turn it back to Karen, and Stella's going to do her magic and let Karen share her screen.
Okay, Karen, I think you should be good to share your screen now.
Let me take a picture off. There we go. Okay, so a stable card it's a separate login. You have to request it separately. You do not automatically get a stable card. You can do it on the website to request a stable card, but you have to make the request. And then it takes a week or so, for maybe 2 weeks to come, and then you have to wait a little bit to use it. So you need to plan a little bit when you're initially going to do this. The stable card.
Karen, are you showing your screen? I don't think anyone can see your screen right now.
I thought so.
I see your screen, Stella. This is Carolyn.
Okay, there it is now. I see it now.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody okay? Hopefully everybody's seeing it. Anyway, so the stable card is like a debit card, except one difference is that in a debit card is attached directly to whatever account you have that debit card associated with. The stable card, you have to move money from the stable account over to the card, just like if you were moving it to a checking account or whatever. So you move it over into the card. And as you can see, currently, I have a balance of $42.12 on my son's stable card. The nice thing about that is you can watch the transactions and see what everything is. You can get to the spending monitor. There we go. There's a spending monitor, so you can, like they are not allowed to withdraw from an ATM. They're not allowed to get cash back at a purchase. They're allowed to do online and phone purchases. So you're allowed to block things and stop things. I want to show one thing right here. They have merchant settings, and you can click here and say add a merchant setting, and then it'll give you a list, and it has an exhaustive list of merchants. But what if you have, and then you can say, what do you want for that merchant? Block all transactions, allow only transactions less than this amount, whatever you want to set it up for. But what if there's a merchant that's not on the list? So for example, here, I took a little bar and grill that I know, and I just set this up and asked them to set up a special limitation on this. And it took about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, but all of a sudden I got an email back from Stable, and they said, this is now set up. So I have said that this card could be used at the Good Times Only Bar and Grill with a limit of $25. Let me go back up here. You can also set up for alerts so that any of transactions that are blocked, you're notified. If you're insufficient funds, you can also set up for alert me for transactions that are over a certain amount, alert me when the balance goes below something. I find this very helpful for anybody, and I've been telling behavioral specialists, any of their clients who have a money management goal, a Stable card is a really good thing because they're so protected, right? Even if they lose it and somebody'd have to know their PIN, they can't get any more than what's on the card. You can control what's going on, and then with these transactions, you can run reports, and we just don't use it that much, but when you can run reports so that you can see what's been done. So here I could set something up that would say, let's do a start date of, let's do it way back. Let's go back to January or December 18th. Okay, and it didn't do it. Okay, well, anyway, you can run a report and you can download it as a spreadsheet, but basically it just really shows you how, and it can give somebody who may have some money management issues, and now you can give them some freedom and some control while managing the card. And as I said before, you can get alerts. So if the balance drops so far, so let's say you have a young adult who's not living with you, and you want them to have spending money, you can be alerted when the card's dropping so low, and then move more money over from the Stable account. Okay, Carolyn, you can take it back now.
All righty, so Stella waves her magic wand. There we go.
I think the wand has been waved.
Okay, I can see it. Are you all? Hopefully you're seeing the slide again that says the Stable card. And actually, this is a picture of my dear friend Chastity Ross, who did pass away this past year. She's a remarkable, remarkable advocate. I'm assuming both of you knew her, maybe. She was the chair of the DD Council for a long time, and big loss. But anyway.
Yes, I know Chastity well. It was very heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. But I have no doubt her legacy is living on in her family as well as in people's lives that she touched, including mine. So in any event, so these are all the things that Karen just talked about in terms of the wonderful opportunities that the Stable card offers. So I think she just mentioned all of these things, that it's loadable, the protections it provides, and then it will track expenses, and then all of the alerts that it will provide. So some considerations. If your family member is on supplemental security income, so balance is over $100,000. Now that would take a while to accrue, right? Because again, you can't just put $100,000 into a Stable account. So that includes contributions and growth. If that were to occur and the person still were eligible for SSI, the SSI would merely be suspended but not terminated. But then here's the thing to think about. If you hold on to the money from one calendar month to the next, then housing expenditures, for example, could count as resources, or anything really. So for example, when I requested that money for Linda's hearing aids, it came in and I got it out during the same month, because Linda receives Medicaid as a function of her waiver eligibility. So again, you want to be thoughtful when you're bringing money back into the person's, say, their personal checking or savings account, that then it comes in and then goes back out. And I said this earlier, but we'll say it again. The beneficiaries or the person's own wages still count as income, even if contributed to a stable account. So I just did a presentation last week actually about this that is on, or will be on, KentuckySPIN's website, KentuckySPIN's website. I said that right. That I hope you'll listen to understand that, again, you just should not be afraid of your family member, or if you're listening to this as a person who receives SSI or SSDI, to go to work, because you're going to have more money. You'll still have your Medicaid eligibility as long as your resources don't go over that $2,000 limit. And that's really what the stable account provides you, that opportunity. So that's what it provided for Clayton. That's what, I don't know so much, Karen, if that's the issue for your son, but I'm assuming that you want to create greater independence for him with the stable account. For Linda, it has kept her going over the resource limit. So for example, when she got the $1,200 COVID payment, that's where it went. It went into her stable account, and then it came back out actually this year when she needed to pay for some personal assistance services on her own. So it's just a wonderful vehicle. Now, what happens when the person dies? So I'll just, Linda's the oldest of the three people we're talking about. She was just 68 last month, and frankly, she has some pretty substantial health issues. So what would happen is if she died, presuming she predeceases me, as I'm the person right now who is the authorized representative on her account, then I would let Stable Kentucky know. And frankly, I don't anticipate there being that much money in Linda's account because there aren't other people contributing to it. And so pretty much, money has gone in, stays for a while, money comes out, but I don't anticipate there'll be a great deal of money. But it's not as though I could have designated that whatever was in there would go to me. And actually, it would, quote, go through the normal probate process. But Linda has been very, very, very fortunate to receive the Michelle P. Waiver service since 2008, and the SCL waiver since August of this year. And so Medicaid could ask for payback. And frankly, I'd be fine with that because Medicaid has already paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to support Linda to live in her own apartment as in a supported living arrangement in Louisville, to help her to have her own bunny rabbit, to go on vacation, to have clothes, to be able to do fun things, but also to really have a good life. I mean, the services through the Michelle P. Waiver and now the SCL waiver are enabling her, because she fell and broke her pelvis in April. So now she has a lot more personal assistance and she's able to stay in her own apartment. So I begrudge Medicaid nothing. But in any event, it would only be from the date the account was opened. So I opened it 2 years ago. Medicaid's still going to have paid, depending on how long Linda lives, thousands of dollars. I don't anticipate there being any outstanding bills because I've already paid for her funeral, frankly. But in any event, I don't begrudge that. I just don't begrudge that. To me, the whole point of the stable account, again, is to put money into it for perhaps a future goal, but then to anticipate that that money would be spent on behalf of the beneficiary. And if there is some Medicaid payback, again, I'm just so grateful that she's had Medicaid. So there is a very minimal monthly maintenance fee right now of $350, and that could decrease as, again, Ohio is this national program, as more and more people join, as there's more and more money under management. These asset-based fees, I'll just tell you, it's not costing you much to have the opportunity for professional management of whatever money you put in there. Stella and Karen, I don't know if you've noticed, but I know for Linda's account, it grew. I mean, it grew because I did pick some of those other asset categories. And so it made money for her. And it didn't cost her that much money for her money to make money for her. So really, it's not either or. It often and should be both. So trust can be written or amended for distributions to stable accounts. Now, one thing to understand about a supplemental or special needs trust, unlike a stable account, a trust can accept unlimited cash and non-cash assets. So for many parents, you still want to have it's always called a third-party supplemental needs trust. If you want to leave some portion of your estate or a life insurance policy, you can't leave that to a stable account, but you can leave that to, again, a third-party supplemental needs trust. Your trust document could indicate that you want, on say a monthly basis, for so much money to come from the trust into the stable account. And then with a trust, the disability can occur after the age of 26. So as an example, I've had an employment specialist email me about one of her clients who receives the acquired brain injury waiver and was going to receive a $200,000 personal injury lawsuit settlement. Now, this person's disability occurred after the age of 26. So right there, again, it was due to a car accident. It occurred when she was about 35. So she couldn't use a stable account. But if her injury had occurred before the age of 26, you can't put $200,000 into a stable account. So again, just to understand that it's not one's good, one's bad. They're both amazing. They complement each other. They can be used together so that a person could have, just as I have. I mean, I do have a savings account. I have a checking account. I have a retirement plan through my employer. I've opened a Roth IRA. I have another retirement account from a previous employer. Not that I am ready to retire because I don't have enough money, frankly, but all that to say is that just think of these as different financial planning tools, okay, that again can be used together. Now, some unique features to Kentucky's ABLE accounts or stable accounts is that, and what's different from a trust, if a trust when it has distributions, if the money grows, there could be taxes. That's not the case for money when it's withdrawn from the stable account, as long as it's spent on qualified disability expenses. Actually, now a first-party special needs trust can be established, administered, and owned by an individual with a disability. That occurred a few years ago. So actually that's, in other words, that woman, her $200,000, if she opened an account, let's say with Life Plan of Kentucky, which is a pooled special needs trust, she can do that. And then, but with stable, your disability has to have occurred before the age of 26. So again, just to understand some of the differences between these two. So we're here to help. I've not called that 800 number. I don't know if either you, Karen, or Stella have, but my understanding is a real person answers the phone. So it's 1-800-439-1653 or team@stableaccount.com. So did I hear somebody unmuting themselves?
Yes, Carolyn, it's Karen. Yes, I have called it both for my sons, and I recently just called it for helping a family, since I'm an ambassador, helping a family, and they're having trouble getting things set up and understanding what they're doing. And so I called the number telling them that I was a Stable Kentucky ambassador and helping the family. And once the family said it was okay for me to be on the phone, I was able to help interpret a little bit with what they were saying to the couple that's trying to set this up for their son.
Well,
they were wonderful.
That's awesome.
And the other wonderful thing about the 800 number is you always get a person. There's no leaving a message. Somebody always calls you, and they're very knowledgeable.
Well, thank you. Well, that's good to have that firsthand experience. Again, that's what I had understood. I've not called the 800 number because I haven't really had any difficulties. But so just know that, you know, Karen, Stella, and I, and I've actually done one-on-one Zoom meetings with families about stable accounts. I just did a Zoom meeting, pulled up the website, went through it with a mom. Then actually now I guess I've actually done it with I've done it with several parents. So just know that Karen has another job, but I can really do this as part of my job. I'm more than happy to, again, just help individual families or a group of families understand about just this awesome opportunity. So hopefully, and Karen or Stella, if you can just make sure you are seeing the website.
Yes, we are.
Okay, just want to make sure. With Zoom, I have a little green thing that goes around my screen, so I know for sure. So again, you need to go to the website to open an account. So stablekentucky.com, and you simply click here, open an account, and you would enroll now. Now, I actually have an account, but I'm not going to open it. But it's not hard to do, but you need to have space in your brain. I frankly opened mine sitting in my recliner one night, I think from my iPad, but I had done my due diligence. I had, again, knew how much I was going to contribute from Linda's account. I had her checkbook with me so I could have the routing number and her bank account number, and I knew where I was going to have the money go in terms of those investment options. So again, in everything that the PowerPoint, and by the way, I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom. Stella has also included these in the handouts. But if you just click Excuse me. Well, now I'm not seeing it. Open an account. There should be a resources. There it is. I couldn't see for looking. If you just click on the resources tab from the website, you will find that PowerPoint presentation and a PDF version that I just used. So again, if you're rocking and rolling, you have a stable account or just want to share this with families, you don't have to be a Kentucky stable ambassador to do this. It's right there on the website. And again, there's the 800 number and the email. So again, everything I just went through in the PowerPoint is here on the website. So you can learn more about stable accounts. Again, the benefits that we've already talked about, you can click here to learn more. And then if you are concerned about whether or not your family member or you yourself are eligible, you can click here to take a little quiz or click here to learn more. Again, I'm going to imagine most of you, I'm going to imagine probably all of you who are listening, either your family member is eligible or you work with or you support people who are. This talks again about the $15,000 limit per year. This could increase over time. I don't know if it's going to be different for 2021, but that's what it is. That's what it's been for the past few years. Now here I am going to click here because you do really need to read about these diverse choices. So as it says, stable accounts are investment accounts, not bank accounts. When you contribute money to your stable account, your money is invested in different portfolios that we provide. These portfolios are the stable investment options, and we offer 5 different investment options for you to choose from, and then it describes growth option, moderate growth option, conservative growth option, income option, and then that bank safe option. And so then it gives you some instructions about how to select your investment options. So Vanguard nor is Ohio Stable going to tell you what to choose. You really, that's an adulting decision. That's a self-determining decision. So they're going to give you some examples here of potential ways in which you could think of it as just kind of dividing or spreading your money out, depending on how much money you're going to put into the account when you open it. Understanding you can make changes, but not like every day. So you need to note this. Federal rules allow you to transfer money from your current investment options to a different set of options twice per calendar year. So that's why, to me, you need to spend some time on this page. You need to know how much you're going to put into the account. And to me, you also are going to have an email account, and you're going to need to be comfortable setting up a username and password. When I set up the account for Linda, it also requires my social security number, my date of birth, as well as hers. So just to have all that information available. If you're going to mail a check, I frankly do not think this is prudent. I just think it's much better to do the electronic transfer, because then you've set it up so again, you can put money in easily, you can get money out easily, but that's up to you. And then who can contribute, contribution limits, and then how to withdraw money. Then ready to sign up. So I think that's at the bottom of every page. They make it easy. They make it easy to open an account. And then here again, as the PowerPoint pointed out, these are categories of qualified disability expenses. They're examples. I would again encourage you to click here to learn more, so that, like with Linda, I had a goal in mind. Clayton, there's a goal in mind. Karen, there's a goal in mind for when I opened the account. There were specific things that I saw wanting to save for Linda. I don't, for example, though, use money from her stable account to pay for her Derby Dinner Playhouse season tickets, because I don't see that as a qualified disability expense. That's something that anybody without a disability could enjoy. But certainly the hearing aids are a good example. Paying again for her own personal assistance is an example. So there are many, many things that could be paid for out of an ABLE account. Linda still has a savings account, and that's actually what I'm using to buy her Christmas presents for all of her staff and other friends. That money's going to come out of her personal account, not her stable account. So this is important to note, these two things. Documenting your expenses. It's up to you. So and for Linda, it's up to me to track how the money is spent from her stable account. We do not ask how you plan to spend your money. So when I made that request for $998, I did not tell Stable Kentucky or Vanguard really where that money was going. However, the IRS has the right to ask you to verify your expenditures. For this reason, you should keep good records on how you are spending your stable account funds. And then non-qualified expenditures. If you spend your stable account funds on a non-qualified expense, you will have to pay regular income taxes, depending on, again, what the growth was. It's just taxes on the growth, not on your contribution, plus a 10% additional tax. So that could be painful on the, again, on the earnings portion of those non-qualified funds. And additionally, the non-qualified funds you withdraw could be counted against you for purposes of determining your eligibility for means-tested public benefits programs like Medicaid or SSI. Now, to my knowledge, that's not happened in Kentucky. But again, as a person who's pretty risk averse, I'm just thoughtful. I'm thoughtful about what it is that the money in Linda's stable account will be used for. So Stella, I think we've got like 10 whole minutes for questions, if any have come into the chat box, or if any come in now that any one of the three of us can answer for folks.
We do have some questions. Hang on, I just clicked the button and lost my screen. There we go. One says, who can I contact if I want to spend the money in my child's stable account, but I'm not sure if the purchase is eligible?
If the purchase is eligible, you know, in all honesty, I would just really encourage you to just think about, you know, these categories, because again, if you call the 800 number, they're not going to say yes or no, frankly. So there isn't someone you can call to, like, that I know of. Karen or Stella, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that's where, to me, you need to be thoughtful about when you're putting money into the account. But if you look under these categories, I mean, there's just lots and lots of things. Again, remember the two criteria. It has to be here, right here. Expense relates to your disability, and the expense helps you to maintain or improve your health, independence, or quality of life. Now, it's interesting to me, you can use it for basic living expenses, which to me, all of us have basic living expenses, but that they're allowing that because that expense would help the person to maintain or improve your health, independence, or quality of life. So there are a number of examples on this website. You could also, perhaps, let me see, the National Resource Center, the National Able Resource Center there was actually a really, really good webinar that Chris Rodriguez, the previous director, did. I'm not sure where it is, but on that very question. So you might want to go to this website, and there might be something under frequently asked questions. Again, how I think about it is if I were to be audited, can I defend this expense to an IRS auditor? I mean, that's how I look at it. You know, first of all, do I have documentation, and can I defend this expense in relationship to these criteria? Now, Karen or Stella, I don't know if you have some other thoughts on that. Again, I'm pretty risk averse, so I guess when in doubt, I wouldn't do it. That's me. But other people may be, you know, willing to, you know, again, I'm risk averse, so I'm pretty thoughtful that I'm going to make sure I could defend it if I were audited by the IRS. Okay, so Stella, are there other ones, unless you and Karen want to add?
Yes, there is one more, I believe, maybe two. Let's see here. Let me get to the right screen. Can I have a stable account for my child if they do not qualify for SSI, and is there an income limit?
So the answer to the question is yes. So if you, again, here's right here, are you eligible? And in the slides, it talked about if their disability is listed on Social Security's listing of impairments, or you've got documentation. So I would encourage you to go through this section. Again, here are the criteria. And again, these were ORs. See, ORs. So this is what the self-certification requires. And you do not have to send that in. And no, there is no income limit. No. If you think about it, I mean, if you can contribute $15,000 a year, that to me indicates that you've got a pretty substantial income or excess, you know, you've got money. So no, there is no income limit for either the person for whom the account is being set up or people who contribute.
Okay, that's good. The other one says, can a rep payee open a stable account for a client? Her guardian is elderly, and I'm not sure she's able to set one up.
So actually, no. So let me show you. Rep payees alone cannot, but let me show you what you can do. So whether then that person would allow you to become a limited power of attorney. So you would need to complete this form to be a limited power of attorney for that person for purposes of establishing a stable account. Because see, a rep payee is not a legal, doesn't give you legal authority in the person's life. So I am Linda's power of attorney and her representative payee. So I have a document, if I had to, that an attorney created, that she signed, it's been witnessed, that shows that I have the legal authority to manage her money. Same thing with guardianship. It gives you legal authority. So the answer is yes, if you complete this form. And it's right there online, and it's not complicated. It does look like it needs to be notarized, which I got something notarized even in the pandemic. I just sent my license through to my credit union where I have an account, and they notarized it for me.
Right.
Okay, so what else?
I also heard you can get something notarized online now. I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like you can get that done. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And then this question says, you mentioned a fund that could be established if a disability occurred after the age of 26. What is that, and how does that differ from the stable account?
Okay. Stella, I'm going to send you one more document, which is a comparison document that I've done, that I've gotten Karen Perch to vet, that compares an ABLE account to a first-party special needs trust to a third-party supplemental needs trust. Okay. So I'll send that to you. I can't do it right now, but I don't know if you can include that. You've got handouts here. Anyway, I'll send that to you if there's a way to get that to folks. So Life Plan of Kentucky is a pooled special needs trust just for Kentucky residents. And so you can, again, it's the same issue that you can't have more than $2,000 in assets. And so like for that example, for the woman whose brain injury occurred after the age of 26 and it's $200,000, what I advised the employment specialist to advise her attorney to do was to open up an account with Life Plan. And so again, you can go on this website. It's just lifeplanofky.org and read about what are special needs trust. You can read the FAQs, and then they're also, so that person, again, now you need to understand there are costs. So there would be costs to open the account, and then again, there are going to be ongoing costs to maintain the account. So ABLE accounts to me are really, really, well, it wouldn't apply if the person's disability occurred after the age of 26. But again, I would just ask you to think about this. If the person doesn't have Medicaid in their life, they can just save as much. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money they have. So just remember that. I mean, I was the representative payee and guardian for a man for 16 years that never had Medicaid in his life. He could have as much money as he wanted in the bank. He had a retirement plan. He owned his own home. So again, really, special needs trust, supplemental needs trust, ABLE accounts are really to protect assets from being viewed as a resource for someone who either, frankly, to me, has Medicaid, because SSI brings Medicaid. Okay, does that make sense? So like for Clinton, I mean, he never had Medicaid. Linda only has Medicaid because she has a waiver. So I do need to have a stable account. Does that make sense? Maybe, sort of. And
yes, I think it does.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I'm more than willing. I don't know, Stella, if there's a way to, in a chat box, I don't know how to do this. You're welcome to share my email, carolynb.wheeler@uky.edu. I'm happy to answer questions. Again, happy to Zoom. I'm not showing up any place in person right now. I hope you aren't either. But it's just real easy to, again, as more questions emerge, I'm more than happy to try to answer them.
Absolutely. I will send your email address in the follow-up email that goes out.
Great.
And that way, if people want to reach out to you, they certainly can. And I would highly advise folks to do that if they do have questions more than what we have answered today. I don't see any more popping up right now, but I know people probably will following the presentation and think about things. I know one thing with us, Carolyn, that we struggle with still that I think cleared up some questions for me today was the investment piece of it. And so I need to go back in and make a couple of changes. For some reason, my printer just started printing. Make a couple of changes to Clayton's account so that, we are able to make sure that we're getting the best bang
Right.
for what we've put in there, making sure that we're doing that correctly.
Right. And again,
So
realizing that you're not going to probably want that money tomorrow, you're looking at probably a couple of years out. So yeah, so good. And again, I did put up the 800 numbers because I know New Vista here in Lexington, I think, has opened up accounts for people for whom they're rep payees. I don't know how you do that. So if your agency is a rep payee and you want to do it for a bunch of folks, you need to call that 800 number. Not me.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
good. That's good. Well, I'm telling you, this is such great information, and don't be afraid of a stable account. Don't be afraid of it. I think a lot of, people might be a little afraid of doing it, but I think it's a wonderful way to be able to have that savings account, and also don't let it take the place, like Carolyn said, of that special needs trust too. I think both are needed, and just do your research and reach out if you have questions. I think that's definitely the way to go. But I want to just thank you all for being with us today, and I also want to wish Carolyn a happy birthday. Today is Carolyn's birthday.
Today is my birthday, but what a fun thing to get to do on your birthday. I mean, really, be with a great group of folks.
Right.
Thank you.
That's right. And also, just to let everyone know, Kentucky Spin is we do every Tuesday, we're doing what we call Tuesday Tips. And then every Thursday, like today, we're just doing additional webinars on a variety of topics. And so you can also go to our webpage. We are constantly updating with the most recent information and resources regarding COVID-19 and education. And also we have an e-news that goes out on a regular basis, usually every couple of weeks. And so you are more than welcome to hop on there and sign up for our e-news. And someone just had a question, will we have access to this video to share? Absolutely. We have a YouTube channel that we post all of these videos to. I will send that link in the follow-up email also. And so it'll be about a week and a half before this will be up ready to share out. But when it is ready, you can go on there and just copy that link and share it to anyone that you want to share it with. And so I think that'll be really good for anyone who maybe you're thinking of right now, wow, they really need to get this information, hear it. So that will be available in a couple of weeks. And if you would complete the evaluation at the end when it pops up, that really helps us plan for our future webinars. We do have January and February completed now. Just finished that, actually finalized it yesterday. So we're real excited to have some wonderful webinars that will still be continuing after the holidays. We actually have one scheduled for next Tuesday. Let me make sure that I'm getting the right date on that. Yes, December the 15th, we're going to be talking about tips for math strategies. And then on Thursday the 17th, which will be our last one for December, is on surviving challenging behaviors with Carol Cecil from Kentucky Partnership for Families and Children. So you can hop on our website and register for any of those. And again, Karen and Carolyn, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate all your knowledge and input and all the work that you do around the state for families.
Well, thank you, Stella and Karen, for all the work you all do on behalf of families and your family member. You're an inspiration to me. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you all very much. And again, please do not forget to fill out the evaluation at the end. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.